faculty. Again, you have fuller biographies in your packets. We're going to hear first from Rabbi Levin on an approach to making identity work in a pluralistic setting. And then we will have a response from Rabbi Michael Fikowski. The only brief bit of intro I'll give to Rabbi Levin is to say that he is professor of philosophy at the Academy for Jewish Religion. Rabbi Levin.
Thank you, Joe. I made some introductory remarks that I wrote out and then put them aside and tried to wing it. I think it will be better. I would like you to prepare physically for my talk by reaching in your packet for two things. One of them is a single sheet of paper on the right side. It says a proposal for purifying all Jews, and incidentally, if there happen to be any patrilineals, we will include them as a matter of course. And it has the principles on the bottom. That's a single sheet of paper. The other is, there is a packet of texts, Hebrew on the right and English on the left. If you turn that one to the very last, it's called Important Texts for a Discussion about Matrilineal and Patrilineal Descent. If you take that packet and turn it to the very last page, so that we'll be looking at page 5, Roman numeral 5, Yevamot 45b. Then you have those, and then I'll refer to them in the course. Okay. I want to draw a couple of lines of connection between the previous speaker's presentation and my own. First, I want to acknowledge Rabbi Tucker's point that descent matters, and the connection I will make is that I will show places where I think that the Talmud proves that there are cases where descent doesn't matter, where it can be entirely upbringing and an acquired identity, and that people can pass. And Rob Asi will approve of your passing. Okay. That's one line of connection. The other is that since Rebecca challenges us to put our personal cards on the table, I will put two personal cards on the table. The first is, my Jewish identity and family identity, so it was relatively unproblematic up to the point that we were raising our two kids, although both of them were adopted, and one was done from the mikveh and all that, but that didn't seem so problematic. But there were friends of ours in the Sheker community that seemed to be going along fine with their happy marriage and 4 kids they sent to Sheker and so on. Until we learned they were getting a divorce. And when we probe the surface, why are they getting a divorce? Well, it seems that he became enraptured with a certain charismatic rabbi who told him that because his wife's mother had a Reform conversion, that the mother wasn't Jewish, and his wife wasn't Jewish, and his kids weren't Jewish. Well, this led apparently to a disagreement in the family over whether dunking in the mikveh is the appropriate response to take to solve all problems of doubt and personal identity, and it broke up the family. Okay, that was one rude awakening that I had. And then when I was in Israel studying in 95, 96, this was actually a little later than that. I heard of the case of Jessica Fishman. Actually, this was reported in the Yom Ha'aron 2010. I'm so sorry. Going to Israel because that's when I started learning Hebrew. the Hebrew papers, the story was just she doesn't live here anymore. Here's a young woman who was raised in a Midwestern community, went to a conservative day school. They lived 10 minutes walk from the shul, so they walked to shul every Shabbat, and they had kept kosher and all those good things. And she made Aliyah, and spent 7 years in Israel, served in the IDF, fell in love, was ready to get married, and that was the fly in the ointment, because it was a discovered investigation. Her mother also had a Reform conversion. So she was not regarded as Jewish in the eyes of the Israeli rabbis, so she was told to dunk in the mikveh. And she broke off the engagement. She left Israel. She threw away the whole package. We can't afford to lose our Jessica Fishmans by telling you, well, just dunk in the mikveh. Okay, this is where I'm coming from. These are my personal cards. Okay. So now turn to the one page. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael, Lifnei mi atem mitaharim, Umi mitaher etchem, Avichem shebashamayim shemechmar, V'zarakti aleichem mayim tahorim utahartem, V'yomer mikvei Yisrael Adonai. Mikvei is a double word. It means, it's translated both, but it also means a mikveh. Okay. Man mikvei v'taher v'tatmeim af hakadosh baruch hu v'taher et Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva said, "Fortunate are you, O Israel, before whom do you purify yourselves, and who purifies you? Your Father in heaven." As it says, "I shall sprinkle pure water upon you, and you shall be pure." And it says, "The Lord is the mikveh of Israel." Just as a mikveh purifies the impure, so does the Holy Blessed One purify Israel. It doesn't say purifies the patrilineals or purifies the converts. It says purifies all Israel. So from this I learned that we should all dunk. So I also have to give thanks to Rabbi Richie Lewis, from whom, this is really 95-96, I learned the texts in Yevamot on conversion that are the basis for my argument here. And why is it conversion? Because conversion requires three things. It requires Kabbalat al mitzvot, receiving the yoke of the commandments. For the men, it requires circumcision. And for everyone, it requires immersion. Except that there is a difference of opinion, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. One of them says circumcision alone is enough. The other one says immersion alone is enough. But somewhere in the 2nd century, a package was put together of all these three things. Okay. And so I also want to suggest an amendment in Rabbi Tucker's saying that there are three categories, those with 2 Jewish parents, those with no Jewish parents, and those with 1 Jewish parent. Because within the category of those with 1 Jewish parent, there are also the ones that get a Jewish education, bar bat mitzvah, and those that don't. And I'm really addressing the case that I think is the easier case of the ones who have at least 1 Jewish parent and have a Jewish education and have bar bat mitzvah. And I think that excludes those who have not had that upbringing, which would have to be a separate discussion. So by assuming that they've had that, I'm saying that they have accepted, they already have Kabbalat al mitzvot. Because if you have a bar or bat mitzvah, whether it's Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, or Orthodox, you have received the commandments. And that would, I argue, on the text of Yevamot, suffice according to the literal Jewish requirement for your receiving the mitzvah. Doesn't matter which of the branches it was. Okay. So now we'll go down the principles. The first principle that I specify is pluralistic reciprocity. And this comes from Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, that although they disagreed, now here's a redefined print, folks. Although they disagreed on the laws concerning marriage and divorce, They nevertheless married each other. What does this tell us? It tells us that they said, if I had to do it, I would do the personal status my way. But somebody else is also a legitimate representative of Judaism, and l'chatchila I would do it my way. B'diavad, after the fact, they did it, which was not my way, but I accept it because they are a legitimate representative of Judaism. I think we have to empower the conversions, first of all the respective branches of Judaism on the basis of this logic. And that is, I think, a preparatory step to addressing how we respond to them on the patrilineal question. Because I will also argue that someone who's patrilineal and raised in a reform educational system with bar mitzvah, that this is a kind of conversion according to the halacha. That's also part of the argument. Okay? Now, the second principle is the irrevocability past a reasonable point of change of status to Jewish identity. This addresses the first personal card I laid on the table. That after you already have children, it's a little late in the game to say, oh, now we're going to look into the parents and the grandparents and so on, and undo what's done. That is destructive. But the halacha gives us a leg to say that you don't do that. And the case that I bring, also from Yevamot, a man came before Rabbi Yehuda and said to him, Nitgayarti beini uvein atzmi. I converted between myself and the wall. Rabbi Yehuda said, you have witnesses that that's what you did? He said, no. He said, you have children? He said, yes. So Rabbi Yehuda said, your testimony would be reliable enough to disqualify you, but it is not reliable to disqualify your children. Now, what does that say about the attitude we should, and this is seconded in the codes, in Maimonides and in the Shulchan Aruch, that if there are children, it affects the status of a doubtful viewer. So we shouldn't be looking backward, we should be looking